Hi and welcome back to the HandToolery. My name is Andrew Malacy and today we're going to be working on the legs for the sideboard project. I'm starting by sharpening my scrub plane iron. This is an iron that I actually took from my Stanley number 5 and I just converted it using sandpaper. My legs are going to be 1 3/4 inches square by about 32 inches long, and so I had to get this large 2-inch thick or 8/4 slab. So I'm going to mill this up, but in the process of scrub planing it, I noticed something was shiny as I was planing it, and I was really dismayed to see that it was a piece of metal. But I started to suspect that it was actually lead, and it was. It looks like a shotgun pellet or lead shot of some sort, and so I was able to extract it and keep going. Now you might have noticed that I'm scrub planing with the grain here, and that's because I'm really not trying to get this super flat. I'm just trying to get it mostly flat and reveal the grain so that way I can choose the pieces that I'm going to use for the legs. And so with that in mind, I don't actually have the scrub plane iron set really deep. I'm just addressing the problem areas as I see them and applying a straight edge to see where I need to take down some stock. Here I'm picking out my number 6, and this is a little bit longer obviously, and it'll help me find any low spots or high spots in the slab. And as you can see, it's missing in the middle, and my straight edge confirms that I have a low spot. So I do want to sort of address that, take off a little bit of material on either side of that low spot towards the front and the back of the slab, and then keep moving along. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because most of my work will be put into actually making the legs to the correct dimensions. Here's the actual result. This is what the slab looks like, and I've got a really good idea of what that one side will give me. I've got a check in the middle and some really nice straight grain, and I'm suspecting on the other side it's going to be the same. So I repeat the process starting with the scrub plane, using some, medium to thick shavings just to take it down, and going from there. So I've got an idea of what both sides look like and what the defects are that I'm going to want to avoid. And here I am just marking out the checks and the cracks and whatnot. And I'm going to mark that by scribbling, and I'm just basically going to avoid this section. Now I can actually lay out where I want my legs to come from. I have this curving section that comes from the middle of the tree, and towards the edge I have a lot straighter grain because the radius is much larger. And while for a board you might want quarter sawn material like straight grain, for legs you actually kind of want diagonal material so the straight lines show on the whole face. This is basically a template stick. It's 2 1/8 inch wide, and I lay this over sections of the slab here so I can get an idea of exactly what the leg grain will look like. So like I said, I have this diagonal, slightly curving grain which will show straight lines on all 4 faces. And so from this point I'm just going to mark exactly where I want the leg to come from on each end of the slab, and that'll be my cut line. And it's 2 1/8 inches wide because I eventually want to take that down to 1 3/4 square, and essentially I want to make sure I have enough room in case there is a defect that I didn't see, or in case I just need to keep removing stock from one side. In other words, I leave myself a lot of room just in case. Since of course I need 4 legs, I'm going to repeat this process across the whole slab. And the 2 legs that are going to be the front legs, the ones that will be the most visible, are the ones that I want to have the most perfect or the most desirable grain. And so I put those with the diagonal grain. Then I just mark everything out, and as you can see, the ones towards the center which have the diagonal grain are both marked for the front, and the ones towards the outside with the straighter grain are marked as the back. Before I go and cut these out, I'm going to make sure my rip saw is up to stuff. And so I give it a good quick once over with the file. It's been a long time since I actually brought this up to sharp. And this is just the tapered file. It's a Nicholson, and it's clamped in my vise. I begin by making slow, deliberate cuts to make sure that I'm cutting exactly on the lines I've marked out. I do and actually flip the board over from time to time to make sure I'm cutting straight. You want to keep in mind that this is a marathon, it's not a sprint, so while the temptation is to really try and blow through all the wood there and get it cut as fast as possible, you kind of have to conserve your energy. So I just take nice, deliberate strokes until I meet up on either end. Now that I've actually sort of divided the slab up into smaller sections, it becomes much easier to work with. It's less of a balancing act and more of a precise motion for me at this point. And so I start the cut, flip it, continue the cut, and flip it, and I just keep repeating that process for all the cuts I have to do. In total, I had 6 total rip cuts to make. It was about 18 feet of ripping through 8-quarter walnut. And it wasn't the worst, but I did split it up over a day or so. You can see me using a variety of different techniques to cut. I use like a two-handed technique, a one-handed technique, the sitting down overhand. And this is basically as I need to, or as my back hurts, or as my knee starts to get sore from resting on the piece. I just use whatever comes naturally, just to give myself a little bit of a break. And even from time to time, I'll go to my bench and continue a cut, with the piece vertical in the vise. At this point, I've got the rough outline of all my pieces. I've got the 4 legs and then the 3 offcuts in the back that I'm going to save for like internal pieces or whatnot. And I'm just going to bring out my joiner plane, my number 8, bring the iron up to stuff on it as well, give the sole a nice quick oil, and just try and start taking these legs down to nice and true. I'm not going to take them to final thickness yet. I like to wait on that just a little while, because once you cut the pieces and release the stress and plane them and open up grain, the pieces could shift and warp, and I don't want to do all the milling in one day and then not use them, since I've got to do a lot of lumber processing on all the other boards and the top and whatnot. After applying my straight edge to see if I'm staying true along the length, I use my winding sticks to make sure there's no twist in the boards and the legs themselves. And once I'm satisfied, or if I have to take any down, I bring the straight edge to it, and then I can put that off to the side as a piece that's ready to be taken to final thickness whenever that time comes. I'm actually going to go back to the sharpening just to make sure the edge is good and honed, so I get the best possible result, because I don't want any really deep tear outs, especially on a face that might be left as a final show face. Once again, with my winding sticks, as you can see, it's just 2 equal pieces of wood with blue tape on one of them. It's what I like to call my poor man's winding sticks. Well, there you go. That's the result of all the milling work I've done on that slab. I've got 4 really nice straight legs, some offcuts and whatnot. The grain is straight, I like it, and basically all I have to do is add the taper to the bottom of the legs there, take the legs down to their final dimensions, and I can really call it done. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this look at what I've done to make the legs for my sideboard project and all the work involved. Thanks for watching, and see you around for the next one.